Okay, so let's dive right into what is, without a doubt, one of the most intense and consequential weeks in all of human history. We're talking about the story from Matthew chapter 21. And this isn't just a quiet historical account. Oh no, this is a series of absolutely explosive showdowns between a radical challenger and a deeply entrenched establishment, all building towards a climax that would literally change the world. So you gotta picture the scene, right? It's Passover in Jerusalem. The city is just packed. The population has exploded from maybe 50,000 people to well over 200,000. Pilgrims are everywhere. Roman soldiers are on high alert, just waiting for trouble. The religious establishment is trying to keep a lid on everything, and the air is just thick with this feeling that the Messiah could show up at any moment. It is, like our source material says, a total powder keg, and it's just waiting for a spark.
And that spark, it arrives in the form of Jesus. But his entrance into the city, it isn't just a simple arrival. No, this is a statement. It's a deliberate, symbolic act that's designed from the get-go to challenge everything. You can just feel the tension building.
And the contrast here is just fascinating. You see, everyone was expecting a conquering king, a military hero charging in on a massive war horse, ready to kick out the Romans. But that's not what they get. Instead, Jesus fulfills a totally different prophecy, one from Zechariah, by riding in gently on a donkey, a symbol of peace. So he's absolutely declaring he's a king, but he's making it crystal clear he's not the kind of king they were looking for.
The crowd, though, they just go wild. They're shouting Hosanna, which, literally means save us now. They are, for all intents and purposes, declaring him their king, their long-awaited deliverer, right there in the streets. But this massive public declaration immediately puts him on a collision course with the people in charge. And where does he go first? Straight to the heart of their power.
And this right here is the first direct confrontation. And Jesus doesn't just, preach a sermon about it. He takes direct physical action against the entire temple system. Can you imagine? He walks into the temple courts, starts flipping over the tables of the money changers, driving out all the merchants, and then he roars out this stunning indictment. But that phrase, den of thieves, it is so much more explosive than we usually think. Okay, so this is crucial. You have to look at the original Greek. The word he uses isn't for some petty pickpocket, it's leston. And leston means violent revolutionaries, insurrectionists, bandits. So he's not just saying, hey, you're cheating people. No way. He is publicly accusing the temple leadership of being a terrorist hideout, as corrupt and violent as the rebels hiding out in the hills. I mean, what an incredible accusation to make. So this act was a threat on so many levels. He wasn't just cleaning house. He completely disrupted their money-making operation. He publicly shamed their piety and this is so important, he pointed out that their whole marketplace was set up in the court of the Gentiles, the only place where non-Jews were allowed to come and pray. He was accusing them of literally blocking the rest of the world from getting to God. This was a full frontal assault on their authority.
Okay, so after being challenged physically and verbally, the religious leaders, they've got to regain control. So now they try to challenge Jesus intellectually. They decide to set a trap for him, right out in public.
So they come up to him while he's teaching and ask this question that sounds, pretty straightforward. It's a classic gotcha question, right? They're trying to force him into a corner. Either he has to claim his authority as from God, which they can call blasphemy, or he has to admit he has no official authority, which would totally discredit him in front of the crowds. But Jesus doesn't take the bait. Not for a second. Instead, he just masterfully turns the tables on them with a counter-question of his own, a question about John the Baptist that puts them in an absolutely impossible position. And here's their dilemma. I mean, it's brilliant. If they say John's authority came from God, Jesus has them cornered. Well, then why didn't you believe him? Checkmate. But if they say John was just a fraud, making it all up, they risk a full-blown riot because the crowds absolutely adored John and saw him as a true prophet. So their only escape hatch is to plead ignorance. We don't know. And in doing so, they publicly expose themselves for what they are, political operators who care more about public opinion than spiritual truth. So, having just sidestepped their trap and exposed their weakness to everyone, Jesus immediately goes on the offensive. And he does it by using parables, these simple stories that have a devastatingly sharp edge, to pronounce judgment on them right in front of the crowd. He starts with a story about two sons. One son says no to his father, but then feels bad and goes to work anyway. The other son says, yes, sir, but then does nothing. Jesus asks the leaders which one did what the father wanted. They have to answer the first one. And then Jesus just drops the hammer.
He tells them that tax collectors and prostitutes, the very people they look down on, are getting into God's kingdom ahead of them. Ouch.
But he's not finished. Not even close. He launches right into his second story. And this one leaves absolutely no room for misunderstanding who he's talking about.
Now, the people listening would have known immediately that the vineyard is a symbol for Israel. The owner, that's God, sends his servants, the prophets, to collect the harvest, but the tenants, the religious leaders, they beat them and kill them. So the owner sends more, and they do the same thing. Finally, the owner sends his own beloved son, thinking, surely they'll respect my son. But what do? They kill him too, so they can steal his inheritance.
After telling the story, Jesus turns to the leaders and asks them, "So, what should the owner do to those tenants?" And they pronounce their own sentence. He should destroy them and give the vineyard to others. It's incredible. And then Jesus just looks them right in the eye and delivers this unmistakable verdict. He's telling them the kingdom is being taken from them.
And with that statement, a line is crossed. There's no going back. Any subtext is just gone. This confrontation has just become an open declaration of war.
This is the moment where it all clicks for the establishment. You can almost see the dawning horror on their faces. There's no more plausible deniability. They finally realize he's talking about them. They are the disobedient son. They are the murderous farmers. And Jesus, well, he's claiming to be the son. I mean, think about it. In this one short period, Jesus has systematically attacked every single pillar of their power. He condemned their temple, the very center of their world. He completely delegitimized their authority in a public debate. And then he declared that their position, their very identity as the leaders of God's people, was being revoked and given to someone else.
And that's really the heart of it all. As the source commentary puts it so perfectly, this wasn't just some theological disagreement for the leaders. This was existentially threatening. It was a threat to their very existence. Their entire identity, all of their power, all of their privilege was tied up in this system that Jesus had just publicly declared bankrupt. At this point, they felt their only choice was to eliminate the threat.
And all of this leaves us with a really powerful, timeless question. This story, yeah, it's set 2,000 years ago, but it reveals this fundamental dynamic of power that's always true. When any entrenched system, whether it's religious, political, social, anything, is challenged at its very core, how is it likely to respond? Well, the events of that week in Jerusalem provide one very clear and very brutal answer.